Absolute Joker is here. Well, he's been here for a while, but now there's origins, explanations, expansion, those kinds of things. And I'm really curious how all this is going to land for everybody. I want to talk about it, so let's do it. I'm Sasha, this is Casually Comics, and it's Absolute Joker time. And to discuss that means, of course, we have to discuss Absolute Batman. Absolute Batman was the first solo book to launch the Absolute Universe. Published on October 9, 2024, written by Scott Snyder with art by Nick Dragotta, colors by Frank Martin, the Absolute Universe would end up taking fandom by storm. Now, the Absolute Universe marketing campaigns for the Trinity all follow the same format. Without X, without Y, there is still absolute insert character. The idea was that the characters would be brought back to their core essence, but the circumstances around them would be changed because of their different environment, because of the creation of the Absolute Universe stemming from Darkseid. Now, what that meant for Batman Bruce Wayne was a few things, but at the center of it was a class flip, and a reduction of, and not an elimination of, many of the resources. This also meant that because his status was changed, so were many of the other characters around him, but the biggest flip has been reserved for the Joker. The Joker now occupies a much more wealthy, privileged position, essentially that of a billionaire oligarch. The Joker was first shown in the epilogue of issue 1 and established as having many more of the resources typically associated with Bruce, such as the wealth, the training, and there were some tongue-in-cheek nods to other mediums and names that the character has had as they described this version.
Jack, Arthur, hell, even I don't know his real name. When you're one of the 30 richest men on the planet, you can be whoever you want, I guess.
Think you'd want to be my rich, generous best friend?
Don't do that. Don't joke.
Why?
You didn't hear? The guy never laughs. Not at anything. Ever. That's why they call him the Joker.
So right away that sets some people off. Since then, the Absolute books, particularly Absolute Batman, the Joker has been meant to be this kind of building presence, this kind of underlying threat. Mostly in the background, his assets funding huge infrastructures and experiments that create or influence many of the dangers that Bruce has encountered or is set to. He has rarely been seen, but there have been some memorable showcases. The baby/fetus blood coat from issue 6, liaising with Bane in issue 11, although that version there was lots of smiling there and it was said that he joked. That stands out to me because other issues go so hard into the no laughing. Granted, he doesn't laugh, but there is a lot of smiling. His biggest showcase before this one in Absolute Batman 15 was an Absolute Evil from October 2025. A one-shot that brought together the key villains of the Absolute books and they formed the Justice League, their version of it. And in that book, the Joker significantly explained the universe as he had come to understand it and some of the things he had discovered about it through his research. According to his research, he's Dorothy-anning it. He is one of the few people who has found out about the Omega and hence Darkseid base of the universe. He's also conceived of the universe as fundamentally morally aligned towards them as a result. Whether the Joker is exactly right or not is something that has been debated in certain fandom spaces, but it pales in comparison, and yes, that was a Pale Man reference, we'll come back to it later, but it pales in comparison to what he is meant to represent to Batman over in his series. Order to Batman's chaos, and the chaos being necessary given the structure of the world as presented in the Absolute ethos. It's a continuation on that flip of their roles. In the Absolute world, the Joker is meant to be part of the system that Batman is fighting against. But there's another layer here, and that layer is metatextual. The Absolute Universe has been no stranger to tease style or even leak style marketing. Some have been very helpful and fueled interests in general, though of course that's not everybody's cup of tea. And one thing that's consistently been shown since even before the release of the first issue has been character designs. And the Joker did have some such teases and leaks. First in the form of a cover reveal for Absolute Batman 15, and then there were some character designs shared by Nick Dragotta. And then there were even more reveals in the forms of cover variants. All of this started a lot of online discussion. Questions. Why does he transform? Does it happen when he laughs? Can he control it? Is this why the other villains are so tense around him? Do they know about this?
Why does Darkseid hate Batman so much? All his villains bordering on being eldritch horrors.
Well, Absolute Batman number 15 reveals a lot of those answers or plays with them. We'll see how everything ends up landing. What it does do is explore/present a more complete version of the Absolute Joker, the most complete to date time of recording. So let's explore and discuss. And because we're so close to time of release time recording, spoilers. Absolute Batman number 15 is written by Scott Snyder with art by Jock with colors by Frank Martin. And the story is two concurrent stories. One is Alfred slowly revealing to Bruce who he believes the Joker is and how he operates. And he starts off by telling Bruce kind of a description of who the Joker is, where he comes from. The Joker has been positioned in this universe from the start as someone evil and powerful, and this is gonna push that even further. The second story is following the Joker himself, who he's LARPing his own version of the most dangerous game. They even mention at one point in the text that he likes to hunt the most deadly game, man. Now, the Joker in this also bears much more of a physical resemblance to Bruce than he has in past iterations, in terms of just in this universe. Before, while it was vaguely there, and some people even mentioned it, and it's even in the notes for his character design, his own classic body type was more maintained, and his features didn't exactly mirror Bruce's the way they do in this issue, where he's more of a Bruce clone, which does match some of the outside discussion of the comic, but does not do a service to the character, as visually it then moves him away from feeling like an alternate version of the Joker to feeling more like an alternate version of Bruce, which is something entirely different. Now, Bruce tells Alfred to tell him the story as he believes it, which he's gonna have to repeat multiple times because Alfred is reluctant to reveal what he thinks to him. So the first tale he tells him is a sprawling generational one. The art really shines in these moments because there's gonna be a triptych kind of layering, and so we're gonna get to see a lot of these slightly altered. For the first one, we get this kind of gorgeous, sprawling, grim, and hold that word art. Don't even have to hold it for long because who we're looking at is Joseph Grimm. Now, Joseph has the nickname of Jack, playing into the name that has been adopted in some spheres of the comic space, which was introduced in Tim Burton's 1989 Batman film, where he was Jack Napier. I always want to say Jack Napier, but the French pronunciation just comes out. Also, you can abbreviate it to Joe as well, and then you could go the Joe Care route, which they've also done. I know that it's Alfred speaking, and I normally do a British accent for these, but the vibe's not vibing for accents today. Joseph Grimm 1, Jack. The story is he grew up an orphan on the streets of Gotham, made his living as a street performer. They say he was good too, best around. Said you could hear the laughter for blocks and blocks, though he himself never so much as chuckled. His reputation grew. He brought its clown act to vaudeville, took the money from that and invested in his own theater. Just kidding. JK! Absolute Batman will always have Christian Bale Bat voice in my mind because that's how he looks.
You cannot tell me that is not the vibe.
Yes, from there he invested in silent pictures, funded some big ones. Competition was fierce, but Jack always prevailed by according to those around him, making people laugh loudest. He predicted JK as slang for jokes truly is a monster. The story goes on that Jack became a philanthropist with a special interest in children given his upbringing, which is another kind of parallel they're going for the Bruce origin, where he also has that because he was rendered an orphan. Here, though, it's going to become something darker. Then it enters a legacy element. His story is continued by his son, Jack Jr., who moves from vaudeville to film. The next expands into broadcasting, the next into early gaming, and the next even further down into online gaming. Everything seems fine on the surface, but Alfred's convinced that something's off, and there are these rumors, so he's dug deeper. After the first story, we cut to Jack, allegedly the fifth on the hunt. He's a classic American success story. A lot of the framing of the Joker has to do with his positioning in this new billionaire role, and this story hits that very hard. It's very clearly trying to tell a tale of the dangers of misused generational wealth and the ways systems can be warped, influenced, or built around it. Now, Bruce knows there's more, so he pushes again. And so Alfred begins again because layering and repetition is key here. It's part of how this issue builds its atmosphere, the way it kind of ramps up the sense of dread. Each of the times the story is told, the art gets a little more dark, a little more grotesque, everything gets a bit more distorted. The second telling is about how the Grimms were corrupt, how there's cheating and behind the scenes deals going on, how the early laughter comes from nitrous oxide, how there's playing of both sides in the war, how the orphans are actually being used for something else. I always come back to that motto, live life like a clown. A clown plays the fool while making a fool of everyone else. He's a mastermind, the schemer. All the gold in the world isn't enough. Nothing's enough. See, that idea of exploring that kind of emptiness, that void, there is something there because you kind of see it in Absolute Evil, that instead of the usual kind of joy that the Joker takes from chaos, that's not possible in this world because of where he's positioned and what that represents. The idea of playing with that and him maybe sensing some kind of emptiness and that leading into why he's so bad in this universe could be very fascinating. It doesn't have to go that way, but that's just what it made me think of. Now, this version of the story is the official report. So of course, Bruce pushes him again. What does he believe? And to that he says, it's kind of crazy, but he's gonna tell him anyway. And as this is going on, we get to see the Joker get to his true quarry, a man trapped on the island, seemingly by him decades prior. The final version of this story brings these two moments together, and now you're intercutting directly between them, which also increases that sense of the kind of urgency because the pacing is ramped up. We go back to that alley one more time, to the clown, because what I found when I dug deeper was that many of the people laughing in that film died soon after it was shot, twisted in pain, grinning, a kind of strychnine poisoning, one of the few toxins that can be absorbed through the skin, like maybe upon shaking the gloved hand of a small boy. That's a nice layer there because then you kind of get a play on the laughing gas, that kind of toxin. That's a strong reference because it's there without smacking you in the face with it. He has found some way, I don't know how, using their cells, using the research done in his arc, some terrible elixir.
Go on, Pennyworth. Who is he?
The clown, Bruce. What is a clown? The whole act is a cruel mockery of us, of humanity. As bumbling stupid, the clown hates us. You find stories in myth, legends, from ancient times to now. If you're a person who likes clowns, I am so sorry. This story has nothing positive to say about the general lightheartedness and buffoonery of classic clown. Pagliacci, the jester who burns the kingdom in Bal de Sauvage. The one who convinces us to kill each other, even as he himself preys on us. The clown is death. The clown is. Ooh, you're veering close to like a dark side is. Let's not go that far.
Dark side Joker, no. No dark side Joker, please.
Now, this version has much more death inside of it. The children around him die. He's siphoning off their energy somehow. He's transformed himself into something because the generational element vanishes. There is only one Jack, just one Joker, consistent evil, something that is no longer a man at all, a monster. And yes, he does transform when he laughs, and the panel of his spine extending as he does laugh is great. And the addition of his eyes going too green as he takes on that semblance of the more acid wash Joker that people are familiar with from the main verse. It's a solid transformation. Although it must be noted that some feel that his final form looks a lot like the Smile entity, and I can't unsee that. That's also a design I like though. The He's the Joker splash page is excellent. Now, all of this takes Bruce aback. He has just come off a stint of some intense things. He was in Arc M where he was dosed with all the venom. There was the mutilation of his friends, the great Tetsuing of Bane where they pumped him so full of venom he exploded. So he has to go off and think about that. But we do get another little epilogue with Joseph Grimm. He goes back to his manor, which is meant to be a play on Bruce having one. But in a fun note that may not have been intentional, the first hideout the Joker had that is labeled as such was a gloomy old manor back in Batman number 4 in 1940 from the story The Case of the Joker's Crime Circus. Now as this Joker brushes past his butler, he goes down to his sanctum, also a cave for reasons, hidden behind a grandfather clock to plan.
The red, it looks like a smile too, which is a nice touch.
Next issue, Absolute Wonder Woman. So let's talk a bit about this issue and the Joker as he stands time of recording, with a special focus on his positioning to Batman and in this universe, as what he's meant to be in this universe has been made explicitly clear in interviews and the like. Now, the issue itself is very well constructed. There's a bit of a nested narrative element at play, and it's compounded by the repetition, which allows it to build, each time learning more and more. It was a very grim, pun fully intended tale. It does pay off the idea that has been built inside of the story throughout the issues, so for over a year at this point, time of recording, that the Joker is a big deal. A lot of how this reveal could land may depend upon how one feels the Joker should be presented or placed in the universe in relation to Batman, both in general and in terms of the Absolute universe. What is the Joker's role? How is it perceived? And does that translate into this framework and that of the Absolute universe? Now, Snyder has a history of embracing the idea of the Joker as more than a man, but a concept, an entity, a forever evil. It's already been flirted with in the main verse, and the Joker and Bruce have a very pointed conversation about their relationship and their roles in the universe, with neither fully seemingly cognizant of who they were at the time, at the end of the New 52, at the tail end of the Mr. Blue mark. So the idea of the Joker as not just an antithesis to Batman, but this all-encompassing kind of evil. It's something that's baked into Snyder's Joker. The question then becomes, does this work for you? Or do you feel that it's too much, that it pushes the Joker past the confines of where he's interesting or useful to the narrative? There's also just in general the sense that for some the Joker is overutilized, but that is a separate conversation. Over time, the Joker and Batman have come to be linked thematically, viewed as opposites. Order versus chaos usually to oversimplify, with Batman on the order side and Joker on the chaos side. And that is part of their flip here in the Absolute universe. But for some, that works much better on a smaller scale. That makes it more personal and something that can then be played out or mirrored in more intimate narratives. That at the end of the day, they're both just two men, one hero, one villain. You can play with things like the inherent tragedy in both their origins, when the Joker has one, that is, which allows one to explore the impacts of trauma and what it truly means for development. One bad day, is that truly all it takes? Or does it come down to some kind of core internal strength or some kind of inherent personality traits? Another thing that's important for the Joker and Batman for many people is that they match in terms of power scale, at least relatively speaking. If the Joker is actually a billionaire who has turned himself into a hell monster, and Batman is a guy with some friends and tech, the scale for some may not feel entirely balanced. Granted, it never fully is, but it doesn't usually feel so obviously tilted. The Joker still feels like he could have resources or a chance. For some, this version of the Joker may be pushing it too much into Bruce feeling like he has too much of a mountain to overcome, that he has no chance, although that may be part of the point, that it feels so insurmountable that it's gonna be really satisfying when he finally does it. That the Joker in this universe embodies this kind of dark Omega Universe worldview. Yes, I called it the Omega Universe. I feel like they're shying away from that because of fan fiction, which I totally understand. Don't look up the Omegaverse unless you already know about it, or you're curious, you'll find things. Maybe some may feel this is perfect and different, which is part of the point of the Absolute universe, and that it still retains the core. Now, for some, this level of grandiosity is fun. It kind of expands the scope and the stakes and the scales, and you can think about it on a more thematic or conceptual level, plus big bombastic fights. While for others, that removes the types of stories that they're interested in. And for some, this may test the concept of the flip, perhaps push it a bit too far. This Joker definitely holds the order position he's been assigned in a larger way contrary to main verse Bruce. There, fair, he's a man. A rich man, yes, but not the all-encompassing avatar of order, especially as he himself bucks against the system, just from a more privileged position within it. But he's still been hurt by it, and it hasn't solved all his problems or given him every advantage because of other circumstances, and also personal character flaws. It's those human elements for many that make the characters fun and make them ultimately interesting, rather than the more conceptual ones. Part of why so many were taken with the Joker in Absolute Evil was the reveal of more of a personality. And even though it was wrapped in the conceptual frame of the Absolute Universe, it was a personal question, because whether or not he is right or not would impact his actions and then hence ripple out to everybody. Now, as for some, I could see this monstrous form being too much, or perhaps potentially too much, depending upon how it's employed or how often, because we've yet to see. This is the first kind of unveiling of this version of the Joker. So how this is going to play out in the overall universe and how it will feel when him and Bruce actually meet has yet to be seen. Now, this Absolute Joker is presented as very serious, and not just the no joking, no laughing bit, but in terms of what his presence means and how it manifests in the universe. So Miles may vary on the more tongue-in-cheek puns, like naming him Jack Grimm or his company abbreviating to JK. This issue is so serious that those moments may come across as a tad jarring rather than a breaking, a kind of lightening of the tone, although for others they'll be welcome. Miles varies on things like that. JK business cards with American Psycho memes when. Now, another element to discuss a bit more is the Bruce paralleling. In this issue, it gets to be a bit on the nose, and a way that relies on knowledge of the main universe to land, rather than being a reference that one can get extra enjoyment out of with their likely but not guaranteed knowledge of main universe lore. For example, until demonstrated otherwise, which it could be very shortly, it seems that the reason for the Joker having a cave is because mainverse Batman has a cave, which also stood out because the rest of the story had so much intense clown theming. It's behind a grandfather clock seemingly because Bruce's is. Granted, the descending into the seeming depths of hell imagery is highly evocative. As the Absolute Universe has gone on, while it obviously relies on the main universe for its sourcing and what it's pushing against / what's being changed, the Absolute books have also begun to develop their own internal logic and have become a bit more confident in some of the things that are shifting and changing. And Absolute Batman changed some things right out the gate. Bruce's friendship with the Rogues, his mom being alive. So there's been an expansion of internal happenings and the world building out from those, creating a bit more of its own lore. And some of these Joker moments feel that they pulled away from that rather than embracing them. In a world where evil is the norm, what need would the Joker feel to hide inside his own sanctum? The answer could be that it's actually not as much of the norm as they're putting out and there are people looking into things. Or it could be an opportunity to showcase that no, this world is that far gone. He walks in his own door and it's just hell in there. Or is what he's doing so horrifying that it's beyond the pale even for this universe, and so we gotta put it under? I'm curious, I'm intrigued, I wanna see it. Aurora Borealis happening entirely in your kitchen. Now, this issue does deliver on many things that were promised vis-a-vis the Joker and actually plays up many of the things that were said would happen, like that he would have a cave. That was mentioned. Some of the things it delivers on are the idea of this version of the Joker being truly evil, monstrous, powerful, and someone that's gonna be very difficult for this Bruce to overcome on several levels. The idea of them clashing now is also very interesting. Transformation fight when. And for some, all of this may establish even more stakes for Batman, just kind of raise them. Personally, I hope some more human elements are injected into this version of the Joker, because there's so much to play with there character-wise. It intrigues me. This version of the Joker who believes he has discovered essentially divine rationale for why all the evil he does is just, and yet in some ways seems quite profoundly unhappy. Is he unhappy or not? That's the other question. It vacillates, and depending upon which it is, that leads to some very different outcomes. Although if he believes that his position is fundamentally right, that would render Bruce's very existence fundamentally amusing, and that would be very fun to play with on a bit more of a personal level. Just finding some way to bring them more into a contact where they feel a bit more in scale with each other. We shall see where this goes. I did really enjoy the dark fairy tale layering of this story, and it's clearly very intentional with its worldview of the Joker. I'm curious how this is going to sit in the long run against this version of Bruce, just overall in terms of the Absolute Universe as it starts to kind of come a bit more together. It made me really think about the Joker, his relationship to Batman, how I think it functions best, how other people do. And for me, that's fun. I always really appreciate when a work makes me think about things in that way on top of being entertaining. And I'm not even done fully thinking about it. It's still percolating. This is just kind of nascent emergent thoughts. So of course, as always, these were just my thoughts and I want to hear yours. If you were hyped, did this live up to it? Is this perfection? Is it the Joker you wanted? Was it exciting? Is it too much? No thank you. Do you like the idea of it being one person, multiple people? Are you still enjoying this book? Are you new to comics and jumping in the Absolute Universe, or have you been here for a while and you're kind of comparing, contrasting, all that good stuff? Please share all your thoughts down below. While you're down there, please do all the YouTube things. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.